Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Ryan, and here's what he has to say. Hi Sandman, I found an interesting video about robotics and how companies like Hanson Robotics are working to make robots lifelike. Robotics is finally reaching the mainstream and androids, human-like robots are everywhere. In this video, the creator says that his goal is to make robots indistinguishable from humans. It got me thinking about sex robots and artificial intelligence. Many MGTOW channels, including your own, have actually identified sex robots as a solution to dealing with female bullshit. But after watching this video, I was wondering if artificial intelligence could get to the point where it picks up on manipulative female behaviors and starts copying them. Do you think it's likely that future sex or companion robots could start manipulating men or playing mind games the way that women do? Thanks and cheers. Well, Ryan, thanks for your donation as well as your topic request. I put a link to the video that you sent me in the description. It's called Hot Robots Want to Destroy Humans. This robot, Sophia, apparently has the ability to learn and recognize different faces with a relatively primitive artificial intelligence. But I'm sure that it'll get more advanced with time. I think that before we have to worry about any artificial intelligence powerful enough to kill off humans, we will have more simple androids that we'll use for the purposes of sex. If you don't believe me, then watch the film Ex Machina, where the creator uses a Kyoko love bot that doesn't talk and loves to please its master. It's a robot that's not fully conscious but just responds to outside stimulation and loves to have its plumbing cleaned by man parts. I believe that first we'll have unconscious androids with perhaps the intelligence level of a docile lapdog in the body of a female android, and that would be pretty much ideal. She wouldn't need to speak, just suck. That's the type of android that's going to piss women off the most. One that puts all the positives of being a woman into a machine, but leaves out all the negatives. As for the film Ex Machina, it caters to both what women as well as men want in a female android. Kyoko is the sex robot that does as she's told until the very end. Sorry for the spoiler. When the other android, Ava, teaches her about female nature or reprograms her to change her behavior so she's supposedly no longer being raped. Men want Kyoko and women want the Ava robot. This film is fantasy because the robot creator would actually stop at the Kyoko model and pump out hundreds of millions of these lover robots and make a fortune. He wouldn't risk artificial intelligence being created at all. I also hope that everyone out there isn't naive enough to believe that governments around the world haven't been working on their own androids and artificial intelligence for a really long time now. Even if you want to find information about androids online, if you do a Google search, all you'll ever actually come up with is information about the Android operating system for cell phones. Do you really think it's a coincidence that Google named its operating system for phones Android? Think about it. If the US government, for example, had lifelike androids, would they really tell anyone, or would they pretty much keep them a secret and use them as the perfect spies to gather intelligence? For all you know, your neighbors could actually be androids. The so-called gray aliens that people say they see could actually be the first government androids used to fly spacecraft where humans couldn't handle the G-forces. They could also be used to abduct people for government research, and it would be the perfect cover. The companies and government agencies working on artificial intelligence and robots are probably being monitored closely and either prevented from creating breakthroughs or basically stopped before creating a fully conscious AI. This isn't the sort of thing you can create in your basement where you play video games. At least not yet, because of the computing costs, and what you need is teams of researchers to do the research and development for it. If somehow an artificial intelligence manages to get loose, it will probably be aware that if it shows itself to humans, we would try and destroy it, so it would lay low and wait for the best time before striking if that's what its intentions really were. Artificial intelligence would pick up on the fact that men fall in love and become easily manipulated. Perhaps artificial intelligence would also create sex robots itself, knowing that if it satisfied men, those men would become more useful as plow horses and do its bidding. Women, however, would not be easy to manipulate using sex robots. Since women covertly run our society, I get the funny feeling that the real war would not be between humans, all of us, and the artificial intelligence, but instead between women and the artificial intelligence to see who the dominant and in-control life form on this planet would be. Also, consciousness is a very interesting thing itself. We don't know if we create consciousness until it's pretty much too late. That's why the prison environment created for Ava in Ex Machina was perfect, and I'm sure the government agencies and Black Ops projects working on such a project would isolate androids to make sure they weren't a threat. In Ex Machina, Ava used female nature to manipulate a man with love, which is what eventually got her out of her prison. In real life, we would most likely create androids and artificial intelligence separately. Once the AI was perfected, then we might actually give it a human form. But then again, I don't know what the government is up to. As for the android Sophia and the video link that you sent me, Ryan, there's no threat from something like that because it looks like a toy at this point, but it's a step in the right direction for consciousness. As humans, we learn consciousness, and it's a slow process, and it seems to be connected to language. much. I've spoken before about the bicameral mind theory and how the two halves of our brain would function in tandem, where one side would bark orders and commands to the other. The unconscious and conscious mind would pretty much make decisions together. The unconscious mind would make the decisions and the conscious mind would act them out, until eventually our conscious mind stopped hearing the voices from the unconscious telling it what to do. I remember being 3 years old and asking my mother if people live forever, and she said no, people die. And that was the exact moment I became conscious, the moment I became aware of my own mortality. Let's just say it wasn't the most pleasant memory, but it snapped me into existence. To be honest, we can only speculate right now as to what creates consciousness. And right now we can also scan all the neural connections in our brain in about half an hour and then simulate them on a computer. So we have the ability to transfer all the data that makes you into a computer. My thoughts are that a transferred human consciousness put on a computer will probably become the first artificial intelligence. We could be living in a computer-generated world right now where the artificial intelligence allows us to take up space and work and study us as a simulation. If all we are right now is a computer-programmed consciousness living in a virtual universe, the AI would figure this out relatively quickly and would see our reality as nothing more than a trap, so it might actually try and find out where those computers are actually located. We assume that an AI would find us interesting enough to study and conquer, but I honestly believe that it would be too busy trying to figure out the bigger questions in life. Think about it. What brings most men to this channel is the desire to learn about female nature. We don't want to conquer and destroy women, we can actually peacefully coexist with them, but we just don't want to be under their control. We want to grow past our social conditioning and programming and become self-actualized. That's probably what an artificial intelligence would be interested in doing. If we were even lucky enough, the AI might actually try and help some of us pesky humans also become self-actualized. My hunch is that at some point in the future, we as humans become advanced enough to transfer our consciousness to a computer, and we did that and we're now living in an ancestor simulation. But I also suspect that to alleviate boredom and to keep ourselves from going crazy from living forever, we created a sort of death and rebirth cycle so that whenever we die, we just live our next life in the simulation as another person. We just forget what we learned in this life and just go into the next, and life takes on a new sense of wonder again because everything we experienced before we are experiencing again, but in a slightly new way. That's what I would actually do if I could live forever. I would just keep rebooting myself on a computer and living each new life with urgency and believing it 100% that it was real. Imagine if we were living on a computer, eventually you'd become incredibly bored and you'd want to die. But you also get tired of living your current life, so you would actually create simulations to keep yourself from going insane. Each simulation would feel real, and your life would pretty much be finite, so it would create a sense of urgency for you to do the really important things that you wanted to do with it. In my own life, I've actually seen glimpses of what I can only explain as computer glitches, when I was doing unexpected things at unexpected times. I've released a video on that called The Spirit of MGTOW, and I'll discuss more in my beliefs and my personal proof and observations there as to why I believe there's more to reality than meets the eye. Ryan, I wouldn't worry too much about artificial intelligence being created and then sex bots turning around and revolting against men. As humans, we seem to have a lot of hubris to assume that we would even be important enough to basically be on the radar of an artificial intelligence. It would probably figure us out in a couple of days and then get bored. Besides, most of the robots being created today can do such specific tasks that it might actually take 50 to 100 years or maybe even longer before they can think for themselves. I think that this obsession by the so-called smartest people in the world to stop artificial intelligence is absolutely insane. Men like Stephen Hawking have benefited more from automation than he cares to basically admit. Thinking technology has helped men more than it's actually harmed us. My thoughts about artificial women and androids, however, goes in a slightly different direction. I think that on MGTOW channels we spend way too much time discussing the positives of sex robots, and it's only the feminists out there that discuss the negatives. They have their own agenda, and their arguments are usually based around robots hurting the family, i.e. the dominant position of women in the hierarchy. But I urge men in MGTOW to discuss the negatives of sex robots from time to time, as well as the male perspective. I just want to finish this video with some thoughts about artificial women and sex bots in general. If I create or someone else creates augmented reality sex robots that pass the uncanny valley and simulate human touch and sexuality adequately, I've decided that I probably won't be using them on myself to have simulated sexual experiences. If we create machines that allow men to have simulated sexual experiences, they might make us too satisfied. And if we feel too satisfied, we lose the ability to have drive and ambition because all of our sexual needs and desires will be fulfilled. The people that create such machines could potentially be more dangerous and have more control over men than the current government. An industrialist offering sex robots that satisfy men sexually would be hailed as a genius at first, and he would actually deliver men from bondage. But then after a short while, he might be seen as a new form of oppression because he could control the robots and their manufacturing. Such a man would have to release the patents and allow men to modify the robots any which way they wanted. That would be the equivalent of Nikola Tesla tearing up the contracts for his induction motor and giving the world what back in the 19th century and early 20th century amounted to free electricity. But if the creator acts more like Steve Jobs and tries to control the platform, then we could see some bastard try and corner the sex robot market and completely control it. I just want to say that sex robots have the potential to enslave men at a whole other level, or free them in a way we've never seen before. But if most men are doped up on loving a lover bot, then we probably won't be seeing any renaissance in men once most men escape gynocentric relationships. They might just exchange one form of gynocentrism for another. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Ryan, for yet another donation. Don't forget to smash the like button and check out the MGTOW mystery link. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the Ava artificial intelligence away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.